Okay, so remind yourself that standard form is ax plus by equals c. And what's the hint that we have to remember? If we're in standard form, that a and b need what? There's something that they're not allowed to be.
Zero.
Nina, they're not allowed to be fractions. Okay, so no fractions for a and b. Sometimes your c is a fraction. Okay, but the coefficient of your x and your y need to not be a fraction. Okay, so when we're converting something, if you end up with a fraction on the a or the b, you have to multiply to get rid of the fraction. Okay, the next form that we talked about yesterday, or that we've dealt with in the past, and you guys are actually pretty good at it, is our slope-intercept form. Okay, who can tell me the formula for slope-intercept form? Olivia.
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. Now what we learned yesterday, the thing that we know is that we have to plug in a value for m and we have to plug in a value for b. We always have numbers in those places. But what we learned yesterday is that sometimes we have to actually solve for the m and solve for the b. Okay? And so we're going to review that today. And then the last form that we learned yesterday was what? Hunter? Point-intercept form. No, point-slope. Thank you. Point-slope form. And who can tell me the formula for point-slope form? Tessa, if you're looking in a mirror, you're not going to get the math. Sam?
Y minus y1 equals m and then times the quantity x minus x1.
Nice. Okay, and we always plug in this form, we're plugging in numbers for this y1 and this x1, which means that we're using some point, right? An x and a y make a point, okay? And then we're also plugging in a value for the slope in this form, okay? So let's try to use it. So if I'm given an equation like 2y equals 3x plus 7. Okay? And I want to graph this. What do I have to do? Kristen. Okay, we can convert it to y equals mx plus b. And so in order to do that, I'm going to divide by 2. And I have to divide each piece by 2. And I end up with y is equal to 3/2 x plus 7/2. Okay, what's my slope, Hunter?
Your slope is 3 over 2.
Okay, my slope is 3 over 2. And my y-intercept, or my b, is what, Aaron?
7/2.
7/2. And now I can graph it. Okay, I have a intercept of 7/2. What is 7/2? What is it really in math? Emma P., what is 7/2? 3.5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3.5 would be somewhere right around there. And my slope is what, Tessa? 3/2, which means that I'm rising how many? 3, and I'm running 2. And which way do I want my line to go? Positive, up and to the right. So I'm going to rise. So I'm going to put some extra lines here, but then I'm going to mark my halves with a different color. So I rise 1, 2, 3, and now I go over 1, 2. So I end up right about here. And of course, graph paper makes all of this easier. Okay? Now, I've graphed it. I figured it out. Okay? This equation that we started with, is it in any of the 3 forms that we talked about?
No.
Tanner.
No.
No. Why? How do you know?
It has the 2 is with the y, and you have to get the y along.
Okay, so it wasn't in y-intercept form because the y wasn't all by itself. It wasn't in standard form because the x is on the wrong side, and it's not in point slope form. Okay, we're going to take this equation. We had 2y, what was it, equals 3x plus 7, and we want to convert it to standard form. We just converted it to y-intercept form, okay, or slope-intercept form. What I want to convert it to standard form. What do I do? What do I do, Alexa?
You have to put the 3x.
Yeah, I do. And so I want to just remind myself of what standard form looks like. Okay? And now I'm going to say, all right, so the thing that has to move is this 3x. So in order to move it, I'm going to add the opposite. And if I add the opposite, I get negative 3x plus 2y equals 7. Standard form? Yeah. This is it. Okay? Now, if you remember when we solved it, we ended up with this slope of 3 halves. Okay? I want to put it into point slope form. And in order to put it in point slope form, I have to have the slope, but I also have to have a point. What point could I use? What do you think, Andrew?
0, 3.
You could use...
0, 3 half.
Okay, and we don't actually use mixed numbers when we're making our points. So what would I really have for a point?
0, 7.
Yeah, my x is 0 when my y is 7 halves. This is the point that I ended up with. That's what this is giving us. Okay? So in order to put this in point slope form, I'm going to write my formula. Y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity x minus x1. And now I'm going to plug in what I know. So I'm going to say y, this one stays the same, and I'm plugging in my y value for this y1. My y value is 7 halves. Equals my slope, I'm going to plug in my slope value of 3 over 2, x minus, and now I need to plug in my x value. So my x value is 0. And now I have it in point slope form.